My name is Rachel, a 30-year-old employed at a foreign investment firm. I tied the knot with Kevin, my husband, 2 years ago. He serves as a civil servant, though his employment is on a yearly contract basis, causing him annual apprehension over contract renewals. Kevin's family staunchly champions the merits of public service. With retired county workers as parents and a sister currently employed in the city office, their allegiance to public service is unwavering. Consequently, there's a noticeable air of disdain towards my private sector occupation. Living under the same roof since our marriage, they seize every opportunity to diminish the significance of my profession. Isn't it embarrassing to work for a foreign company as an American, especially in finance? Isn't that just about chasing profits? People in private sectors are perceived as those who couldn't secure public service roles, and those in foreign companies are seen as settling because they couldn't land a domestic job. It's a pity, they often remark. It appears that my husband, who was raised in such an environment, also holds public service in high esteem, despite the instability of his position and its modest salary. He remains steadfast in his attachment to this precarious job. Once, during his annual bout of anxiety around fiscal year-end, I ventured to ask Kevin, "Wouldn't you feel more secure with a stable full-time position in a regular company rather than remaining a part-time employee in public service?" His response was resolute. "I'd rather face unemployment than venture into the private sector." Kevin hasn't disclosed his part-time status to his parents, insisting that I maintain the secret as well. Despite lacking a substantial role, he fabricates tales of promotions to uphold his pride. I don't believe he needs to fabricate such stories, but it seems he's striving to earn respect in the eyes of his parents and younger sister by portraying a certain status. Despite never showing me his payslip, the amount deposited into our account suggests his salary is rather modest. With Kevin's recent promotion to section chief, one would expect a significant salary increase, right? How much is he earning now? Caught off guard, Kevin accidentally divulged my salary. However, instead of the anticipated reaction, his father seemed taken aback, questioning, "Is that the standard income nowadays?" While I'm uncertain of the exact salary of a public sector chief, I do know that as a bond trader, my earnings are considerably higher. A notable portion of my earnings comes from commissions. Lately, my performance has been consistently strong, resulting in a salary far surpassing the norm. Upon learning the figures, my husband remarked, while his mother nodded in agreement, "Times have changed, but it's clear Kevin is highly regarded." She seemed visibly pleased. Kevin's sister, employed at the city office, joined the conversation, asserting, "You see, working at the county office guarantees higher earnings for my brother. He might even hold a department head position if he were in the city office." Kevin's discomfort was palpable after inadvertently revealing my salary. Realizing his mistake, he quickly tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. "Oh, by the way, I saw someone from the housing manufacturer around here the other day. Are we planning to remodel the house?" he asked. Indeed, a salesperson from a housing company had recently visited to assist us. Seizing the opportunity to divert the conversation, I suggested, "If we are considering a renovation, I'd recommend focusing on the kitchen." Before I could finish, my mother-in-law cut me off sharply. "No, as the daughter-in-law, you have no place in family discussions. Just keep quiet and follow instructions." It seemed my intimidating mother-in-law disliked everything I did or said, primarily because I wasn't a civil servant. She also resented that I received all of Kevin's salary and gave him an allowance. Believing Kevin's claim that he earned a substantial income, she was convinced I was managing his finances. In reality, Kevin's modest salary mostly funded his personal expenses, while I covered nearly all the household costs. My sister-in-law didn't contribute to the living expenses at all. "Why would you take living expenses from us when we're living on a pension? Kevin is making so much, you don't need it," they would say, refusing to help. They didn't have to pay rent, and I could manage with my salary alone. But it felt unfair. Despite shouldering most of the financial burden, I wasn't allowed to participate in the home renovation discussion this time. So, I retreated to the kitchen to clean up after dinner, promising myself that next time would be different. Neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law helps with the housework, so I hurry home after work to cook, clean, and do laundry. In this respect, working for a foreign-owned company has its advantages. As long as I perform well, there's no need for overtime, allowing me to always leave on time and keep my work and private life separate. Kevin, on the other hand, often brings his work home and spends his days off on his computer. I worry about the security of bringing work data home. When I asked him about it, he snapped, "I can't help it. I get yelled at if I work overtime and even more if I don't finish on time. It's not your concern, so don't butt in." His response was harsh, and he has been particularly grumpy lately, snapping at me whenever I try to talk to him. He even yelled at me when I brought up the housing issue he had been discussing with his parents. Just like Mom always said, it's none of your business. You just need to follow what's been decided. I was growing increasingly frustrated with Kevin's attitude. He never shared anything with me despite my bearing the burden of living expenses and housework. One day, a representative from the construction company came to my in-laws' house with a computer, discussing the layout and other aspects of the house with everyone except me. When I brought them tea and tried to sneak a peek, they immediately yelled, "You don't need to look, just go away." From my brief glance, I was surprised to see what appeared to be the floor plan of a new house, not a renovation of my in-laws' home. For some time, my father-in-law had mentioned that their house was getting cramped and that he wanted to rebuild it, but I hadn't thought he was serious. It seems my in-laws, both retired civil servants, received generous retirement allowances and are planning to build and live in a new house with that money. In addition to their retirement allowances, they haven't spent much of their pension either. Since marrying into the family, I assumed they had ample funds, so I tried to stay out of their financial decisions. However, one thing did bother me. Would Kevin's sister still be living with us in the new home? At 28, it might be time for her to get married, but there hasn't been any discussion about that. It seems highly likely she will continue living with us even after the move. This wouldn't be a problem if she helped with the housework, but she tends to dump all the chores on me and then complains about it, saying, "It's too troublesome." I wish my sister-in-law would get married soon, but recently I overheard my father-in-law discussing plans with the home builder. Can we add extra rooms so that when our daughter finds a husband, they can also live here? Ideally, we'd like a house where my wife and I, our son, our daughter, and her future husband can all live together, he said. I was shocked to hear this, especially since it seemed they were planning for my sister-in-law to live with us even after she marries. I can only imagine how large a house for 3 families would need to be, and it probably wouldn't fit on their current property. Considering that the new house would be built with my in-laws' retirement fund and my sister-in-law's earnings, I have no right to complain. Still, I can't help but think about how much of a hassle it will be to clean such a large house. Then, my husband and his family decided to visit the showcase room and construction site, telling me to stay home because it's none of your business. My mother-in-law shouted at me with a nasty grin, clearly expecting a retort. She looked annoyed when I remained quiet. The construction of the new home proceeded without any information being shared with me, and my in-laws and sister-in-law started preparing to move out. My husband didn't seem to be preparing anything, so I asked, "Don't you need to be getting ready to move?" "Why would I do it? That's your job," my husband snapped back at me. I was taken aback since he hadn't even told me when and where we were moving. From then on, I started preparing for the move whenever I had time, but I made sure to separate my husband's things from mine. The whole new home move-out incident had completely shattered my trust in my husband, and I could no longer bear my mother-in-law's terrible attitude. Even when I asked my husband about our new address, he simply replied, "You don't need to know. Just be prepared." From snippets of conversation during meals, I gathered that the move was imminent, but it was strange that they kept me, the wife, completely in the dark. Perhaps they thought of me as nothing more than a maid. One day, the moving service arrived, and that was when I finally learned we were moving. As I hurriedly cleaned up the breakfast dishes, my mother-in-law remarked, "We're buying new ones, so you can leave those. And are you planning to move into our new home with us?" In that moment, it became clear. They hadn't told me about their new home or the moving date because they intended to kick me out. As I saw my husband standing silently behind my mother-in-law, a smirk playing on his lips, I couldn't help but wonder if he shared her intentions. Well, I had anticipated something like this, so I had already packed my belongings separately, without a trace of agitation. I met her gaze squarely. "I despise everything about you. From now on, we're going to live as a family without you. Do whatever you want." My mother-in-law shouted at me, her tone filled with disdain. My sister-in-law watched with indifference, perhaps expecting me to break down and beg to stay. My mother-in-law's displeasure deepened at my lack of reaction. "You're a parasite, leeching off Kevin's paycheck since the day you got married. Get out now. We need Kevin's salary to pay off the mortgage on our new home, she spat out, her words sharp with resentment. Parasites like you are a nuisance, she seethed, her anger palpable as her face flushed red. While I had already planned on leaving, the revelation about my husband's salary being used for repayment almost made me burst out laughing. My husband appeared shocked, unaware of this arrangement. He gazed at his mother, then downcast, unable to speak the truth. His reaction revealed that my in-laws intended to rely solely on Kevin, whom they perceived as a high earner, to handle the mortgage repayments without tapping into their retirement funds. The prospect of how they would manage the mortgage repayments intrigued me. With a smile, I responded, "Understood. I will divorce Kevin, and you can all move to your new place by yourselves," I declared calmly. My mother-in-law, clearly displeased with my composed demeanor, appeared as though she wanted to say more, but she was ushered out of the house by my father-in-law and sister-in-law. Turning to Kevin, who remained behind, I said, "I'll bring the divorce papers, so give me the address of your new place. I have no idea what your magnificent new home looks like, so I would like to see it once." Reluctantly, he provided me with the address. With little luggage remaining, I cheerfully arranged for a friend to help me move out using her car. I made sure to switch all the bills to be under Kevin's name rather than mine, utilities and everything included. Returning to my parents' house for the time being, I decided to head to the address Kevin had given me to have him sign the divorce papers. Their new house was strikingly large, designed to accommodate 3 generations, with its grand architecture looming impressively. Upon spotting me, my mother-in-law hurried over, shouting, "What are you doing here, you parasitic wife?" Ignoring her tirade, I calmly asked Kevin to sign the divorce papers. Reluctantly, he complied, while his mother continued her verbal assault. "I knew it. A non-civil servant wife is useless. Hurry up and sign, and send her away," she insisted. I couldn't resist a retort. Such a splendid new house. The payments must be quite the burden, aren't they? Can Kevin's salary cover it? I remarked snidely, watching as she read the papers, her anger palpable. "I don't need your concern. Take the divorce papers and leave immediately," she snapped once again. I lingered for a moment, observing my ex-husband's pale expression, but with his mother on the brink of eruption, I swiftly retrieved the divorce papers and filed them at City Hall before embarking on my search for a new home. After all that transpired, the thought of marriage lost its allure, so I opted for a cozy studio apartment to relish living independently. There was a charming spot conveniently close to my workplace, so I wasted no time in making the move. In my new abode, devoid of anyone foisting chores upon me or boasting about civil service, life took on a tranquil hue. Just as I was settling into this newfound peace, an unknown number lit up my phone screen. "Rachel, can you come back to me? I can't keep up with the mortgage payments, let alone the utilities. My phone lines have been cut off, and I'm borrowing my friend's phone to call you." It was none other than my ex-husband, Kevin. Through tears, he pleaded for help, but I couldn't help but feel exasperated. Instead of turning to me, he should have sought assistance from his parents or his sister. So I responded acidly, "Why not ask your sister, who's employed in public service, for support? And what about your parents? Surely they have their retirement savings and Social Security." Kevin's discomfort was evident as he confessed, "Actually, my parents have depleted their retirement savings, and my sister is grappling with her own financial troubles." It turned out that Kevin's parents had fallen prey to an investment scam, losing a significant portion of their retirement funds. Meanwhile, Kevin's sister, under the impression that she didn't need to aid her parents financially, had been recklessly accumulating debt through excessive spending on credit. Upon learning of my occupation in investments, my mother-in-law's demeanor turned openly hostile. Now, I wonder if her animosity stemmed from being swindled in an investment scam. Furthermore, it seems they were keen on upholding their social standing through ostentatious purchases, perhaps to preserve their pride in their public service careers. However, despite their efforts, Kevin's parents found themselves burdened with debt, relying on their Social Security checks to meet their obligations. I was taken aback to discover that Kevin's sister, despite her youth, had amassed significant debt by indulging in purchases of branded goods on credit. The situation took a further downturn when Kevin revealed, "Actually, I've been let go. I'm unemployed now." He had lost his job this year after being caught working remotely with data he had taken from the office. He should have heeded my warning, but it's hardly surprising, considering he was taking confidential data out of the office. Even before Kevin lost his job, his family was already grappling with financial difficulties, reliant on my income. Kevin never disclosed to his parents that he was only a part-timer. Likewise, his parents concealed the loss of their retirement funds due to a scam, and even his younger sister kept her substantial debt hidden. In their public service-oriented family, filled with pride, everyone harbored deep secrets that somehow remained hidden as long as I was around. However, after they moved to their new home and I departed, their financial struggles came to light. As a last resort, Kevin reached out to me, seeking assistance. However, I had no desire to reconcile with him, so I firmly declined and ended the call. Despite my refusal, he persisted with repeated calls but eventually ceased after I continued to ignore him. Sometime later, as I passed by their new house, I noticed a for sale sign. Upon speaking with a home builder present at the site, I learned that they were struggling to meet their mortgage payments and had to sell the property quickly. However, they still had outstanding debts. It was ironic considering how they had previously boasted about their financial stability. Yet, when faced with financial difficulties, they swiftly sold their home, placing a burden on a relative who had co-signed the loan. According to the builder, this relative worked in the private sector, exacerbating the family's embarrassment as they were now ostracized by their relatives. Their previous claims of being public servants no longer held weight, and they were looked down upon by their community. Sitting comfortably at home, I couldn't help but smirk at the thought of how the once proud family, now isolated by their relatives and unable to flaunt their public service jobs, were faring. While I was busy with my work as a materials manager, I got an email that really shook me up. It was from Michael, and he calmly told me that he was in love with someone else and wanted to start a new life with her. He also said he was taking the fancy car we bought together, even though it was under my name. I begged him to think it over, but he didn't listen. Then he disappeared with his new girlfriend, leaving me with a big debt. It was a total shock for me, Ava, at 33, and our little family of 3, including our smart 12-year-old son, John. John's cleverness was evident from an early age, as he would have deep conversations and give thoughtful opinions on articles, which was quite different from Michael's inconsistent behavior. Even though Michael hadn't held down a stable job, he somehow managed to keep money coming in for the past 4 years, encouraging us to make lasting memories as a family. This led us to buy a camper van worth $388,000. However, because Michael couldn't meet the financial requirements, I ended up responsible for the loan. On the day we were supposed to get the camper, Michael sent an email saying he was taking it, leaving me to deal with the financial burden alone. When I confronted him, he confessed to having an affair and said he was leaving to start a new life. He even mentioned divorce, something we had argued about before. But now it was really happening, catching me completely off guard. Finding out about Michael's betrayal and then him disappearing, leaving me with a huge debt and no way to contact him, was devastating. I tried to reach him, but it was useless, and he never sent the divorce papers he promised. On top of that, we were still dealing with the $38,000 loan. In the midst of all this chaos, John's understanding of the situation made it clear just how much Michael leaving had affected us emotionally and financially. This wasn't just a tough situation, it was a harsh wake-up call to reality. I had to figure out how to move forward after being betrayed, all while making sure John was okay and dealing with this overwhelming debt. After dinner, John came up to me looking worried, his young face showing concern. "Mom, what's up? You haven't been eating much lately. Are you okay?" His worry made me stop for a moment. "Oh, I'm probably just a bit tired," I said, trying to brush it off. But John, wise beyond his years, said, "You know, they say when people lie, they look up to the right. Lying isn't good, Mom." Then he cautiously asked about Dad's absence, saying Dad hasn't been around for 2 days. Did something happen? His directness surprised me, and I felt like I had to tell him the truth about what was going on with our family. John reacted maturely, almost like he knew something was wrong even before I said it. He seemed to understand the situation with a wisdom beyond his age. Even though I could tell he was upset, I couldn't hide my stress in the following days. At work, during a training session, I suddenly couldn't stand up. I was overwhelmed by emotions and collapsed, feeling like I was being swallowed by darkness, while my colleagues expressed their concern around me. Waking up in a hospital, I was told I needed some serious medical tests. It hit me hard. Lying in that bed, hooked up to an IV, I couldn't help but cry. When John rushed in, looking really worried, I had to quickly wipe away my tears. He was scared, asking, "You're gonna be okay, right? You're not gonna die?" I reassured him that I was going to be fine, touched by his bravery and how grown up he was acting even though he was just a kid. His concern when he mentioned his teacher calling about me being in the hospital reminded me of how strong I needed to be. Even though the doctors told me it was worse than I thought, having John by my side gave me a new determination to get better. I knew I had to recover, not just for myself, but for both of us. Going through all of this showed how strong our connection was and how we could face anything together with bravery and determination. When the doctor confirmed my worst fears and said I needed urgent surgery for a serious illness, it was like everything became a blur of medical appointments and treatments. As I recovered, a month had passed since Michael left. When I got home, I found a letter in the mailbox that made my heart sink. A demand for the car loan payment, which was supposed to be automatically deducted. The shock only got worse when I checked our bank account. What used to have $445,000 now had just $29.90 left. Michael had taken almost all our savings, leaving us in a really tough spot without the camper van. I felt even more hopeless knowing I couldn't sell it to make up for the money we lost. Seeing how upset I was, John stepped in to help in the kindest way possible, suggesting he could start delivering newspapers and look for online jobs to pitch in. His willingness to take action was like a ray of hope, pulling me out of my sadness. Now's not the time to give up, I told myself, feeling encouraged by his positivity. Together, we came up with a plan to get the camper van back, using a clever idea. We could track its location using the GPS on John's phone, the one we got for him. It was a plan born out of necessity and John's smart suggestion, giving us a new direction. It was something we hadn't thought of before, offering a glimmer of hope in what felt like a hopeless situation. With the GPS app, we could keep an eye on where the van was, a crucial first step in our mission to get back what was rightfully ours. Going through this tough time had not only shown how strong we were, but had also brought us closer together, all working toward the same goal. Worried about Michael possibly getting away with excuses, John's confidence was like a shining light. "Don't worry, Mom. I've got it covered," he said with a smile that put me at ease. I was amazed by his forward thinking and independence. Even when I was vulnerable and in the hospital worrying about everything, John had come up with a plan that was so smart. I couldn't have thought of it myself. His initiative showed not only how clever he was, but also how well he understood what was going on. Even with Michael's new relationship, feeling empowered by John's clever plan, we decided to confront Michael, turning our tough situation into a learning experience for him. "We're stronger when we're together, and now it's time for us to take action," I said confidently, feeling like nothing could stop us with my son by my side. Just 3 days later, I got a call from Michael, sounding desperate for help with a police investigation related to our report of the stolen van. Without wasting any time, John and I rushed to Forest Park, where we found Michael looking stressed and surrounded by police officers. When we got there, I asked for a private chat and sent the police away for a moment. Michael seemed uncomfortable under our gaze and the stares of others around us. He quickly invited us into the van, where his girlfriend was sitting defiantly, but her presence didn't matter as much as what we needed to discuss. "Why are the police involved, Michael?" I asked, genuinely confused. "It's simple," I explained. "The van, which you thought you could just take, was reported stolen. It's under my name, not yours." Michael's belief that marital disagreements were exempt from the law was shattered by the reality of his actions. This wasn't just about getting back what was rightfully ours, it was also about showing Michael the consequences of his betrayal and recklessness. Our careful planning and John's smart thinking had completely changed the situation, proving that even when someone betrays you, staying strong and united can lead to justice and empowerment. Michael thought he could get away with breaking the law because he thought marital issues were outside its reach, but he was wrong. "Remember the divorce you wanted? That means we're not legally connected anymore. So you can't use a car that's registered in my name without my permission," I explained, correcting his misunderstanding. John had figured this out too, showing wisdom beyond his years. Michael tried to say he was just borrowing the car, but I wasn't buying it. "Is that right?" "Well, I need my car back now, please," I said, holding out my hand for the keys. Michael reluctantly handed them over, realizing he couldn't argue with the truth. Then John, a mix of curious and disappointed, asked, "Why did you choose her over us?" Michael stumbled over his words, while his girlfriend Sophia tried to justify their affair. But John's serious tone shut her down, insisting on an answer from Michael. When pressed, Michael reluctantly explained how their affair started and grew, leading to his decision to leave with Sophia, who was now pregnant, and the van. "Why take the van?" I asked, already having an idea thanks to the GPS app we had on both our phones for safety after John's hiking incident. This tool unexpectedly gave us updates on Michael's location, showing us he was misusing the van. This was a big moment where our preparation and John's clever thinking made a difference, showing the importance of taking responsibility and the power of technology in uncovering the truth. Finding out that John had faked getting lost on our hike just to get a cell phone amazed me. His actions, driven by a feeling that something wasn't right with his dad, led to a plan to keep track of Michael. "You're quite the strategist," I said, impressed by his cleverness. I was amazed, even though I joked about how John seemed to predict what would happen. When confronted with John's honest words, Michael couldn't say anything to defend himself. On the other hand, John's grown-up way of speaking and standing firm in what he believed made me feel proud as a mother and determined to make things right. The fact that Michael had taken $45,000 from our account, money I had saved before we got married and during all the times when Michael couldn't keep a steady job, was especially upsetting. Realizing that divorcing Michael was a relief showed just how much he had betrayed me. Even though Michael tried to make it seem like taking the van and the money was just a small argument between us, I was determined to take legal action. "Should I call the police now?" John asked, ready to dial the number on his phone and bring in the authorities. Sophia, who had been listening in, panicked as things escalated, especially with her own parents arriving, angry and ready to confront her for her part in everything. When she tried to leave the van, her parents stopped her, yelling loudly. "I'm sorry, please don't be mad," she begged, hoping for some sympathy that wasn't there. I had taken the step to tell her parents about what was going on, prompted by John's visit to Michael's workplace while I was in the hospital. He had told them what was happening with our family, leading to an investigation that brought Sophia's parents into the picture. This confrontation wasn't just about exposing Michael and Sophia's lies. It showed how far John and I would go to make things right and protect our family. It proved how important it is to take responsibility for your actions and to stand up to those who try to deceive you, no matter how complicated things get. I sat down with Michael and recounted the whole messy story to them, explaining how we ended up in this situation. Things took a surprising turn when I questioned the timing of Sophia's pregnancy, pointing out some inconsistencies that suggested the baby might not be Michael's. Michael was shocked by this revelation, staring in disbelief as the truth sank in. Sophia tried to deflect, but tensions rose, leading to a heated argument between her and Michael as they each tried to blame the other. Their fight showed just how deep their deception went, and everyone there saw it. As the night went on and the police arrived with their flashing lights, Michael went back and forth between denying everything and admitting he was wrong, begging for forgiveness and promising to change. But John made a wise observation that real change is rare for those who keep making mistakes on purpose. I was determined to make sure Michael faced the consequences of his actions, showing that we wouldn't let him get away with what he'd done. We were committed to handling the aftermath with dignity and making sure justice was served. The $45,000 loss was just the beginning. Michael agreed to pay child support each month, and his wages were garnished to cover these expenses and others. It was the start of a long journey to make things right. Selling the camper van not only got rid of the loan, but also symbolized leaving the past behind, allowing me to focus on healing and the future. As time passed, I regained my strength, thanks to my renewed dedication to my job and the constant support from John. He took on household chores with a maturity beyond his years. Despite the challenges, this experience strengthened our determination to move forward. We were inspired by the lessons learned and the justice served. And through it all, we made sure John knew that integrity and resilience are important qualities to have when facing tough times, so he could keep chasing his dreams with confidence. I can still picture the day Jack strolled into my life like it was just yesterday. I was in a tiny cafe, sipping on their cheapest coffee and trying to sort out my thoughts. Then he walked in, looking like he stepped out of a movie scene. No fancy lights or music, just the jingle of the doorbell and the smell of stale coffee mingled with his aftershave. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, flashing me a charming smile and pointing to the empty chair across from me. "Go ahead," I said, trying to play it cool despite my surprise at his sudden appearance. We hit it off right away, like two peas in a pod. We had the same interests, from binge-watching cheesy TV shows to arguing over the best pizza topping, pineapple, no doubt. Soon, we were serious about each other, not just casually hanging out. It felt like we had known each other forever. And before we knew it, marriage was on the table. But then came the tough part. Let me tell you, his parents were a handful. Meeting them for the first time was like stepping into a lion's den with a juicy steak strapped to my back. They had this way of smiling while silently judging you, deciding if you were up to par or not. "You're the one Jack can't stop talking about, huh?" his mom said, her tone more frosty than friendly. "Yep, that's me," I replied, trying my best not to let her intimidating aura get under my skin. His parents wasted no time in expressing their desire for us to sign a prenup. I wasn't interested in their money, but their approach left a sour taste in my mouth. "I'll sign your prenup," I told them. "But here's the catch. If one of us cheats, the cheater owes $200,000. Jack looked stunned, like I'd slapped him with a wet fish. "Babe, I'd never cheat on you," he insisted, his expression dead serious. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing before I caught him cheating," I shot back. It was either this deal or nothing. Jack eventually agreed, though his parents didn't seem too thrilled about it. We figured that settled the matter, but we were in for a surprise. One evening, we were cozied up on our old squeaky couch. We always talked about replacing it, but it held too many memories to let go. The TV droned on in the background, but we were too wrapped up in planning our dream trip to Switzerland. We knew it would stretch our budget thin, but we were determined to make it happen. Picture it, Jack. The food, the wine, the art. "We have to go," I exclaimed, excitement lighting up my eyes. Jack chuckled and pulled me closer. "Linda, you had me at food, but let's face it, our bank account is more suited for backyard camping than a fancy trip to Geneva." I nudged him teasingly. "Then we'll save up. We'll cut back on things we don't really need, like your video games." He feigned shock. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my beloved coffee maker, but spare the games." We shared a laugh. That was us in a nutshell, dreaming big while staying grounded in our simple life. And we were content. Our happiness didn't just lie in grand adventures, it was also in the everyday moments, like Jack's attempts at cooking breakfast on Saturdays. He wasn't a culinary master, but he had somehow perfected scrambled eggs and toast, which he proudly served with his less than perfect coffee. "I'm feeling scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" he'd ask, already making his way to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I'd tease back, adding, "and I'm taking charge of the coffee." One day, as we tackled the dishes together, a mundane chore that felt special because we did it side by side, Jack broached a topic we'd been avoiding. "Linda, we need to talk about, starting a family," he said, breaking the comfortable silence. I paused, holding a plate in my hands. "I know it's just scary, isn't it? What if it doesn't happen for us?" Jack turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll face it together. But we won't know until we try, right? How hard can it be?" He chuckled, a mix of nerves and affection in his tone. Famous last words, huh? But that's us. Whatever life threw at us, we tackled it together. Even when his mom started dropping hints about wanting grandchildren every chance she got, we handled it. "Linda, dear, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, she'd say, her tone sugary but her message clear as day. I'd hold my tongue, flash a smile, and chirp, "We're on it, right, Jack?" And he'd chime in, "Mom, chill out, okay? These things don't happen overnight." But as time passed, the pressure mounted. It wasn't just from his mom, but from us too. We longed for a family, but it wasn't falling into place as easily as we'd hoped. Since Sophia found a new hobby in making my life tough, our home felt like a war zone, her sharp words the main ammo. It all boiled over during one Sunday lunch, meant to be serene and easygoing. Right on cue, Sophia barged in uninvited just as we were about to dig in. The atmosphere turned tense the moment she stepped in, her eyes scanning the room like she was inspecting a battleground. "Well, "Isn't this a quaint little setup?" she sneered, eyeing the modest meal I'd whipped up. "Quite the effort, Linda. Looks like you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Trying to keep the peace, I mustered a smile. "It's nothing fancy, Sophia. Just something simple and quick. Please, take a seat." As we settled at the table, she launched into her usual spiel. "You know, Linda," Sophia began, her tone dripping with condescension, "I was chatting with Mrs. Charlotte the other day, and she mentioned how her grandson just became a dad. It got me thinking, when are you and Jack going to give me some good news? Time's ticking, you know." My cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and frustration. I glanced at Jack, hoping for some backup, but he suddenly seemed very engrossed in his meal. "Mom, seriously?" Jack finally mumbled, but it lacked conviction, and we all knew it. Undeterred, Sophia pressed on. "I hate to be blunt, but you're not getting any younger. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Linda if she can't fulfill her basic duties as a wife? Hiring help for cleaning and cooking would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That was the last straw. "Sophia, I'm doing my best here," I blurted out. "It's not like I don't want kids. And as for the house and cooking, I didn't realize marriage came with a job description." Sophia scoffed. "Marriage isn't a free ride, Linda. You have responsibilities, and frankly, you're not meeting them." The air grew heavy with tension, and tears threatened to spill from my eyes. But what hurt the most wasn't Sophia's harsh words. It was Jack's silence. When he finally spoke, it wasn't in my defense. "Mom's right, maybe we should consider getting some extra help around here. It would take some weight off your shoulders too," he suggested. His words felt like a stab in the back. It was clear I was alone in this. In the days that followed, Sophia's visits became more frequent and her criticisms sharper. She'd scrutinize every corner of the house, pointing out any flaw. "You call this clean?" she'd sneer. "Looks like a pigsty to me." Then came the jabs about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? A wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Jack seems exhausted. He comes home to this." I tried to stand up for myself. "Sophia, I dress for myself, not Jack. And he's tired because he works hard, not because of my outfit." But it was pointless. Sophia had made up her mind about me, and nothing I said seemed to make a difference. Jack's lack of support hit me the hardest. Every night after his mom's departure, we'd end up arguing. "Why won't you defend me, Jack? She's bulldozing over us, and you're just standing by." "Linda, she's set in her ways. What do you expect me to do, kick my own mom out?" "No, but I expect you to be my partner, to stand with me, not her." It became evident that this went beyond Sophia's disapproval. It was about us, our marriage, and whether we could withstand the onslaught of Sophia's criticisms. As weeks passed, it dawned on me that this wasn't just a passing phase, it was a full-blown assault. If we didn't take action soon, there might not be anything left to salvage. Things between Jack and me had turned frosty ever since Sophia ramped up her criticisms. But it wasn't just our home life feeling the strain. Jack himself had started behaving oddly, and it wasn't solely because of work stress. There was something else, something unsettling. It all began with his phone. Jack used to be open about it, we had no secrets. But then he began leaving the room whenever he received a call. And it was always from the same person, Paul Work. One evening, I tried to sound nonchalant and asked, "Who's Paul Work?" Jack visibly tensed up, a clear sign of nervousness. "Oh, just a new guy at the office. Asks a lot of questions," he replied. But there were more changes. Jack, who never cared much about fashion, suddenly started paying attention to his appearance. The graphic tees and worn-out jeans disappeared, replaced by crisp shirts, slacks, and even cologne. "Since when did you start smelling like a department store?" I teased one morning, watching him style his hair differently. He just smirked. "Can't a guy mix things up every once in a while? No harm in that, right?" Then there were the late nights at work, becoming more frequent. "Another long one, babe," he texted. "Sorry, this project is a killer. I'll be home soon, I promise," he reassured. But it would be well past midnight before I heard his keys jingle in the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It lingered like a shadow. That's when I made the decision to hire a private investigator. It felt like a scene from a cheesy TV show, but I needed to know for certain. The evidence arrived in a plain brown envelope. Heartbreaking yet undeniable. Photos of Jack with another woman, their intimacy unmistakable, captured in moments that shattered our years together. But it was the recording that cut the deepest. Their conversations filled with affection and plans made it painfully clear. He was in love with her, or at least with someone else. I sat there, staring at the damning evidence before me, a chilling reality sinking in. This could be the key I needed if our marriage spiraled into a messy divorce. The photos captured stolen moments from our life together, while the recorded words betrayed every "I love you" he ever whispered in my ear. But I kept it all to myself, a heavy burden I chose to carry alone. I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed time to strategize, to navigate the collapse of our marriage while preserving my dignity. The days that followed passed in a blur. Jack maintained his facade, and I played the part of the dutiful wife, smiling outwardly while crumbling inside. Our conversations became a delicate dance around the truth, each word carefully chosen, every laugh forced. "Are you okay?" Jack would inquire, genuine concern lacing his voice. "Yeah, just tired, you know. Work's been hectic," I'd respond, the lie bitter on my tongue. It seemed like just another ordinary day until I accidentally overheard a conversation that would change everything. As I passed by Jack's office, the door slightly ajar, their voices drifted out. It was Jack and his mother, Sophia, and their conversation wasn't casual. Their tones were serious, filled with purpose. "I can't keep this up, Mom. It's not just about having kids anymore. I don't feel the same way about Linda. It's like we're living together as strangers, not as a married couple," Jack admitted, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Sophia's reply was cutting. "Well, can you blame yourself? She hasn't given you a child. And what else has she really brought to this marriage? But let's not be hasty. My 65th birthday is approaching, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her, would we?" Her cynicism felt like a stab in the heart. They were using me, planning to keep me around just long enough to benefit from a lavish birthday present before discarding me. "Exactly, dear. Just a bit longer," Sophia affirmed, her words dripping with malice. I stood there, stunned and furious. They were plotting to push me out of the family as effortlessly as crossing off an item on a shopping list. The pain ran deep, but it fueled a burning desire for vengeance within me. They thought they could manipulate me and discard me at their convenience. I was determined to prove that I wasn't just a pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, we gathered for a family dinner that felt more like a scripted performance than a meal. Sophia brought up her impending birthday with a smile that made my stomach churn. Leaning in, she asked, "So, Linda dear, what do you have planned for my birthday? Something special, I hope." I met her gaze calmly. "Actually, Sophia, I've been thinking of arranging a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant, an unforgettable evening." Her eyes gleamed with anticipation, and she exchanged a satisfied glance with Jack. They believed they had me cornered, but they didn't realize I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Linda, that sounds lovely. Just close family, you know, keep it intimate," Sophia cooed, her voice oozing with insincerity. "Absolutely, Sophia. We'll make it a memorable occasion," I replied, the words leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Sophia's 65th birthday felt like a slow march towards a reckoning. Every smirk from her and every indifferent nod from Jack fueled my resolve. My plan was straightforward yet daring. Orchestrate a lavish dinner as a supposed gesture of affection, then unveil a monumental surprise. As with all well-laid plans, the devil was in the details. The night before the party, our home crackled with tension. Jack, oblivious to the storm brewing, lounged casually on the couch, absorbed in his phone. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" he inquired, still glued to the screen. "You could say that," I replied, my voice masking the turmoil within. The day arrived, and as guests streamed into the opulent dining room we had reserved for Sophia's celebration, anticipation hung heavy in the air. My pulse quickened, not from nerves, but from the excitement of what was to come. Sophia, relishing the spotlight, luxuriated in the grandeur of her surroundings. "Oh, Linda, you've truly outdone yourself. This place is divine," she proclaimed loudly enough for neighboring tables to hear. As we settled in, the evening unfolded with a peculiar cheer typical of family gatherings. Laughter rang out, stories were shared. Then, as the dessert plates were whisked away, the waiter approached with the climax of the evening. The bill. He leaned in discreetly and murmured the staggering dinner costs. $66,000. I handed over my credit card, my action going unnoticed by most. Then, with a strained smirk, Jack decided to drop his bombshell. "Linda, it's time for the truth. I'm done with this, with us. I want a divorce." His words hung heavily in the air, suffocating the room. Before I could fully process his announcement, Sophia, sharp and unyielding, interjected. "Well then, now that's out in the open, it's best you leave, Linda. Tonight is about family, and well, you're no longer part of ours." The room fell into a hushed silence, every gaze fixed on me, awaiting my response. But I refused to crumble. With a composure I didn't truly feel, I rose from my seat, nodded, and departed without a word. The chill of the night air slapped against my skin as I made my way home, the weight of finality crashing over me in waves. By the time I reached Arno's apartment, I had a plan. I gathered my essentials, my numbness morphing into steely determination. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As I sealed my last suitcase, my phone buzzed incessantly. Initially, I ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me, and Sophia's voice erupted from the other end. "Linda, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this right away," Sophia's voice demanded. The irony was bittersweet. In my preparations, I had blocked access to the shared account, anticipating it would be Jack's first move. "Oh, Sophia, what a shame. But since I'm no longer considered part of the family, as you've made abundantly clear, I'm afraid you'll have to handle this matter on your own." Her indignation crackled through the phone, but it was a symphony to my ears. The ensuing chaos was a fitting conclusion to the charade my marriage had become. I heard tales of the restaurant staff demanding payment, Sophia's escalating fits, and eventually the police being called to defuse the situation she had incited. In the end, it was Jack and his kin who scrambled to settle the bill. A poetic retribution for the betrayal and indignity they had subjected me to. The morning after the dinner felt like emerging from a tempest. Armed with my plan, my determination, and a stack of divorce papers in hand, I returned to what once was our shared abode for the final time. The atmosphere was tense, palpable, as if it could be sliced with a blade. Jack and Sophia stood there, seemingly embroiled in a heated exchange. Their animosity toward me seemed to merge into a unified front of fury upon my arrival. "You've got some nerve showing your face here after last night," Jack spat, his features twisted in a mixture of anger and disbelief. Quick to echo his sentiment, Sophia hurled her own barbs. "Ingrate, you've brought shame upon us in front of the entire city. Do you comprehend the humiliation of having the police summoned on account of your actions?" People were laughing, filming. I met their fury with a composure I hardly felt. "Shame? Is that your primary concern right now?" I retorted, tossing the divorce papers onto the table, placing the incriminating photos of Jack's infidelity atop them. "Perhaps you should direct your attention to this instead." Jack's complexion drained of color as he picked up the damning photographs, with his mother looming over his shoulder. Their rage dissolved into shock, then morphed into panic as they comprehended the gravity of the situation. "And let's not overlook the prenup, shall we?" I pressed on, my voice unwavering. "You stray, you pay precisely $200,000. Sophia's features contorted into a snarl. "You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us." "Oh, but I can, and I will," I retorted, my voice devoid of warmth, resolute in my decision. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Jack altered his approach. "Please, let's discuss this. We can find a solution." I couldn't suppress a bitter, mirthless laugh. "Find a solution? You think a few words can undo everything? No, Jack, it's over." Sophia, ever the master manipulator, attempted to soften her stance, her tone dripping with false concern. "Linda, darling, think about what you're doing. This will destroy us." "That ship has sailed, Sophia. You should have considered that before." Their pleas shifted to desperate entreaties, their words a frantic attempt to salvage whatever remained. But my mind was resolute. I was done playing the victim, done with their deceit and manipulation. In the end, Jack had no recourse but to borrow money from his parents to settle with me. As I departed from that house for the final time, check in hand, I felt a burden lift from my shoulders. After all that transpired, I was finally liberated. I used the money from Jack to secure a down payment on a modest yet snug abode of my own. It's remarkable how much tranquility you can find in a residence that's solely yours, where each nook feels like a sanctuary away from the tumult of the past. Life is calmer now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I have a job that keeps me occupied, amiable neighbors who offer nods and smiles, and a petite garden that's entirely mine to tend to. Occasionally, I catch wind of gossip concerning Jack and Sophia. Just the other day, while grabbing coffee from the local spot frequented by the community, I bumped into an acquaintance from the old neighborhood. After some polite chit-chat, they leaned in, lowering their voice, and whispered, "Hey, have you heard the latest scoop about your ex and his mom?" Their eyes gleamed with intrigue. I arched an eyebrow, intrigued yet detached. "Can't say that I have." "Do share." They seemed to relish divulging the news. Apparently, Sophia isn't too thrilled with Jack's new girlfriend. Rumor has it they're quarreling like there's no tomorrow. Puts your situation in a whole new light. We moved on from the topic, but as I strolled away with my coffee, I felt a profound sense of relief. There was a time when such news would have unsettled me, but now it's simply another chapter in someone else's tale. These days, my greatest worries revolve around whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels snatch them, or if I'll ever master yoga without resembling a newborn deer on ice. Life is simpler, quieter, and considerably sweeter on this side of the chaos.